John Rosen, Daryl Evans here on behalf of SolarCity and Kings Vision, talking about the road trip, looking ahead to a bunch of divisional games coming up right now for this Los Angeles Kings team. 3-2-1 road trip. Going into that Toronto game, they had a chance to really make it a special road trip. But then again, if you talk to anybody, if you have a better than 500 points percentage on the road, you're in a good position. So the Kings satisfied with what they've been able to do, providing a base for these divisional games to come.
I agree with you, John. I think sometimes because the Kings have set such a high standard over the last couple of years, even though they're happy with the record they come back with, they would like to have had more, and they had a good opportunity to when they went into the game in Toronto. And unfortunately, to run into a hot goaltender in Jonathan Bernier, who came up with his best performance of the season, and maybe the Toronto Maple Leafs as a whole. But I think the Kings did a great job throughout the course of the road trip. At the beginning, a back-to-back situation, they showed a lot of energy, and there was a lot of bright spots on the trip. So all in all, a positive.
One of those bright spots, and we spoke about the Bernier for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Kings had an absolutely terrific performance in net from Jonathan Quick in the win over the Montreal Canadiens. That was his 39th career shutout. When you talk about Quickie, Kings had come off a pair of games in which they got 1 point against the Buffalo Sabres and Ottawa Senators. They spent a couple days in Mont-Tremblant, and then you come back, you're really needing that win. That's something where the Kings talked this year. You talked to Dustin Brown. The Kings this season, they're trying to keep those 2-game losing streaks from turning into something that's a 4 or 5 game losing streak. You saw a couple of those last season, but the Kings came together. They were able to come up with a very big win in that Montreal game. And boy, when you look at Jonathan Quick, a lot of highlights there that should serve as some of the best stuff from this past season.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And you go into a city in Montreal where the Kings have struggled all through franchise's history, only 9 wins going into that contest, and it was Jonathan Quick. And Jonathan Quick not happy with the way the game finished in Ottawa, not that the 5 goals against were him to blame, but he really wanted to come up with a big effort, and that's exactly what he did. He put an exclamation mark on that game. He was outstanding right from the get-go. So many great A-quality saves that he made out there, and he was by far the best player on the ice for either team. Drew Doughty, give him a strong push there, but the performance that we saw from Jonathan Quick, the Kings just their 10th win again in franchise history in Montreal. So that one kind of looks real big at this time.
Kings have won 2 of their last 3 trips to Montreal. One other player that we want to talk about who has had a good turn over the last really 3-4 weeks or so and was strong on this road trip has been Marian Gaborik. He had 8 shots on goal in the game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're seeing him now skating alongside Anze Kopitar and Milan Lucic. Saw that a little bit at the beginning of the season. Now Milan Lucic, he's more used to playing under Daryl Sutter. Might still be a little bit of an adjustment playing with somebody who is somebody that's a distributor with his left hand as opposed to somebody that is right-handed. But when you look at this Kings team right now, Marian Gaborik, you saw it again a little bit last season around this time. His game really starting to come through together. It's about building that consistency, and from what we saw on the road trip, some big positive steps.
Yeah, a lot of positives for him. The big thing with Marian is to get those legs going out there. When his legs are going, he gets himself into positions where things are able to happen offensively for him. And in the game in Toronto, he got those chances, grade A chances, and more nights than not, he's going to be able to capitalize on one, if not multiple chances like that. And usually the team will fare quite well. And had he been able to get a goal, and maybe early on in that hockey game, the result might have been different, but Marian Gaborik seems to have gotten his game back to the level where not only he's happy, but where the organization needs to be playing. And regardless of who's over on the left side, whether it's Lucic, Tanner Pearson, whoever it is, if Marian Gaborik does and brings to the table what he's capable of, that line is going to thrive.
Familiar role player taking the ice on Monday with this Los Angeles Kings team, that's Dwight King. Obviously, anybody that's been following the team for the last 4 or 5 seasons know that the big hulking winger is somebody that's good at playing down below the dots, helps that LA Kings possession game, really their bread and butter play, that style that they like to play. Seeing him on the ice, first time that he has skated with the full team since back on October 3rd when he suffered a broken foot that needed surgery, blocking a shot in that final preseason game against the Colorado Avalanche. What we heard from Daryl Sutter on Monday, doesn't look like he's going to play in the calendar year 2015, but just having that big presence there, somebody that can help you out, especially when the Kings are looking to really cultivate that type of production from their left wingers. King's not going to be somebody that's going to light up the score sheet per se, but still somebody that helps out in a lot of facets of the game. The entire team was happy to see him back out there.
Oh, no doubt. Anytime that you get a veteran player back in and a guy who's a presence on the ice, you welcome that. And I think when you look at the Kings' schedule coming back, you talked about divisional games, John. It's important because the Kings really want to re-establish their identity again, and that's playing that heavy style of hockey. When they're playing against teams in their own division, that's more of the style as opposed to the run and gun maybe that we've seen in the East Conference games. So having him back, and again, it's going to be in the next little while. He's got to get his timing down. He's been out, hasn't played games in a couple of months, so it'll take him a little bit of time. But he's in good physical shape. He's doing a great job at getting condition on the off ice. Now it's just a matter of translating that to the ice. But the teammates happy to see him back on the ice, and he had a big smile on his face.
Oh, we love those Dwight King smiles. We see those from time to time around these parts here at Toyota Sports Center. Something else that we're going to really see quite a bit of over these next couple of weeks, a heavy divisional schedule, as you just said. The Kings just played 8 consecutive games against the Eastern Conference, went 5-2-1 against the East. That was a good stretch, but now where the Kings are really continuing to look to distance themselves from the other teams in the division, it starts on Tuesday night against the San Jose Sharks. San Jose coming off of a longer road trip themselves that started actually 2 nights before the Kings played the Montreal Canadiens up at the Bell Center. The Sharks were up there and also started their trip up with a win. Came up with a big point against the Chicago Blackhawks back on Sunday night. So a tough challenge to start. The Kings so far this season 4-4 against the Pacific Division, looking to cultivate, enhance that record right there, and a big rivalry game to start it off.
It is a big rivalry, and I think anytime that you play a team that you're very familiar with, it just becomes a little bit more, let's say, a little more important. A little bit, and being the last game before the holidays come about, I think both teams are looking to get a huge win. They've exchanged victories this year, winning in the opposite team's building. So coming back to Staples Center, the Kings are going to look to try to have and take advantage of having that last change at Staples Center. But San Jose has been a better team on the road than they have been at home this year. So the Kings are going to have their hands full, but it's a big game and a big 2 points at stake before the break.
Lots of games coming up against Calgary, against Edmonton, Toronto coming back over here in a little bit as well. Kings have a big Western Canada's trip that will start out with a trip first to Glendale, Arizona to take on the Arizona Coyotes. We'll keep you updated and on track with all of this as part of your Solar City recaps. I'm John Rosen with Daryl Evans. You're watching Kings Vision at LAKings.com.